Good day to you and welcome to another Paddocks Club tutorial. Today we're going to talk about the recent amendments to the prescribed management rules. The Sectional Titles Act 1986 was recently amended. Specifically, the regulations were amended in terms of Gazette number 34639, which was published on the 28th of September 2011. And those regulations, which have the effect of amending not only the bulk of the regulations, but also their annexures, which includes the prescribed management rules, those will come into effect one month from the date of publication. That is on the 28th of October 2011. So what do the changes to the regulations cover? Well, there are amendments to the text of the existing regulations and insertions of new regulations. There are amendments to the text of some of the forms. Those are situated in Annexure 1 to the regulations, the insertion of new forms, and there are amendments to the text of the prescribed management rules. That's Annexure 8, as I've said, and that's what we're going to concentrate on today. We'll only look today in this tutorial at the rule changes. What are they? Well, there's a new 31.2a dealing with the budget period. There is the deletion of PMR 31.4 that dealt with special levies. There's an amendment to 36.1 that deals with the budget preparation. There is an amendment to 39.2 that deals with AGM document delivery, and in fact a change to 54.5 does the same thing in a different way. And then you've got PMR 68.15 that deals with use restrictions. That's been changed. And finally, in the context of dispute resolution, there's a change to PMR 71.4 that involves the Chief Registrar of Deeds. Let's look at the budget period. We've got a new PMR 31.2a that says where the financial year end and the annual general meeting of a body corporate don't coincide, the budget shall coincide with the financial year of the scheme. Now that makes perfect sense because you've needed audited financial statements for the AGM, and you can only start those after the financial year has finished. The normal thing is that budget is only prepared later. Now it must be prepared for a period that ends at the end of the financial year of the scheme. The provision in 31.4 for special levies has been deleted. I've given you on the screen what it looks like now. It will be deleted at least on the 28th of October. And the first question that everybody asks is, does this mean we can't have special levies anymore? And the answer is no. Look at this provision. It simply says that you can't raise a special levy except in circumstances where it's unbudgeted and where it's necessary. And it gives the details of how that must be done. If we look at the Act, you've still got provision in section 37.2a and 2b. 2b defines a special contribution, call it a special levy if you will, and then says when they become due and payable by owners. So don't worry, there is still a possibility to raise special levies when they're necessary. There just isn't codified into the prescribed management rules anymore the two requirements, that they must be necessary and they must be unbudgeted. I don't think it makes an awful lot of difference. At the end of the day, the way in which the rules are implemented has to be reasonable. Therefore, you can't raise a special levy if it's not necessary, if it's not reasonable. The question of unbudgeted was always a bit of a difficult one, so I'm pleased to see it gone. Let's look at the amendment of PMR 36.1. This is budget preparation. Now, before this used to start off reading, before every annual general meeting, the body corporate, the trustees shall cause to be prepared. It now says before the beginning of the financial year. This forces the trustees to start the budget preparation a little earlier, within the period of the existing financial year, and I think that's very sensible. You then have the amendment of PMR 39.2, and that has to do with the AGM document delivery. This is an attempt to introduce the possibility of email and fax delivery of those AGM documents, because they're very expensive to post about by registered post and all that sort of thing. And insofar as it achieves that, I think it's a good thing. This is a piecemeal alteration, and there needs to be a complete and overall provision, as there will be under the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act, for electronic delivery of documents. The same thing is dealt with in a slightly different way in 54.5, where they just cross-refer to the documentation, that is your documentation for the AGM pack, which now, if that doesn't arrive, but it's inadvertent, it wasn't on purpose, but by a mistake, it does vitiate the proceedings of the meeting. The amendment of PMR 6815, that's a use restriction, currently fairly narrow because it deals only with the intended use as shown on a registered sectional plan. In that case, if you can't use an exclusive use area or a section differently to the way it is clearly intended to be used in terms of the sectional plan. They've widened that up, so the use restriction, the handcuffs have got just a little bit wider. Now you also not only have to look at the sectional plan, but also at the approved building plans. And also, if it is quite clear from a provision in the rules how an area is to be used, or obvious from its construction layout and the available amenities. In all those instances, now 4 instead of 1, you can't use it differently except with the written consent of all other owners. Finally, there's an amendment to PMR 7114. This was a bit of a bottleneck. The individual registrars, when people couldn't agree as to who would be the arbitrator, the individual registrars would appoint a registrar. The chief registrar has now said, no, look, his office will do that, and that will probably work much better. When is the effective date of all these changes? On the 28th of October 2011. Thank you very much for joining me in this tutorial. Let's discuss any issues you have in the forum.